Hi, I'm Theresa Gagnon of Yoga Source and the Yoga Guide, and this is...
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm the owner of Strat Internal Performance, and I'm a muscle system specialist.
I love that language. That's huge. So the reason why Brandon and I are here together today is to share with you the knowledge of incorporating, well, let's say, what did you say yoga was again the other day?
It was yoga is a predetermined name, and it's all kind of like a prefabricated thing. But my whole thing is that there is no such thing as yoga. We just have physics and biology.
I agree. But yes, we do want to enjoy our yoga practices and enjoy our yoga practices safely and effectively from the principles of alignment that really help us to have a successful practice. And what that looks like, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today, forward folds. One of the biggest things as a yoga guide, and I'm learning to be discerned, when I look at a student who is struggling to touch the floor and it looks like this. Even though I say bend the knees and use blocks underneath your fingertips to get there. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about with Brandon's expertise on the muscle and the being, and what does it look like? So where do you want to begin on this one?
Well,
Just that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. So I'm going to grab some bones here, and I think that might be the best place to start. So when we're talking about forward folding, ultimately when we look at you doing a forward fold, there are tons and tons of joints involved. For everyone that's watching, I mean, if you look at Theresa, her feet are on the ground, and frankly, every joint is involved with her reaching down to the ground. Now, as a human body, we have a couple limitations that we need to respect. And first and foremost, which we're going to talk a little bit more near the end, is this stuff. We got bones, and these two bones together make a joint. Now, the problem with these joints is that your joint and my joint and everyone else's joints are shaped a little bit differently. So even though Theresa is extremely flexible and can do a forward fold, quote unquote, perfectly, some of these bones will hit another bone and actually restrict how much motion there is. And that's where you'll hear quotes like people saying, structure dictates function.
Okay. Oh yes, yeah.
So we've got that, and then the second thing, which is a slightly more complicated thing.
Go, give it to them, give it to them.
We all know we've got muscles in our body. Now we got muscles that cross one joint, we got muscles that cross two joints, and we got muscles that cross a lot more joints. Now the challenge is, like with something like a bicep muscle or a hamstring muscle, the bicep and hamstring both cross two joints. So when I do a motion like this, like an elbow flexion, which is a very common motion, and even you do the same, right? We can see that there is an amount, bring that all the way in, where Theresa can bring her hand towards her shoulder. So this is called elbow flexion. Now the problem is with some of these two joint muscles, the actual muscle itself can only shrink so much. And that means when there's two joint actions forcing that motion, it can't go any further. This also works on the lengthened end. So what does that mean? Well, if I take Theresa, I'm gonna put you in an awkward position here. And she does elbow flexion and squishes that all the way. You see here, that distance between her hands? Not that bad, you got maybe 3 inches there. Now, same idea, bicep also flexes the shoulder. So you bring your arm all the way up. Now while your arm's there, try to flex your bicep all the way. Now, she's actually got pretty good motion, but she's actually about an inch further away from her shoulder. Now, she's really flexible, but if I use myself as an example, if I bring this all the way in, and then I bring my arm all the way back and I try to bend my elbow,
Pat yourself on the back.
I
Good
can't
boy.
get there because my bicep actually gets in the way and actually can't shorten anymore. That's called active insufficiency, when a muscle loses the ability to produce force because of its orientation at the lengthened end of two joints or the shortened end.
Or is it just because your biceps are really big?
It might be because I'm huge, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a biomechanical tension issue with skeletal muscle. So how about you show me some forward fold examples and we can talk a little bit more about which one of those two things we might be dealing with and how we can fix it.
Okay, the most diverse and important part of our vinyasa flow, which is a sequence set of asanas, postures, is forward fold, and it is required in most vinyasa flows to forward fold, and that's a standing forward fold known as uttanasana. So in that forward fold, I see a lot of this, but technically it is that closing in, flexing torso right in towards your limbs, quite like that, for pretty much the posture. But most people are not able to get there, and it looks like this, or struggle like that.
So that's awesome, and we can actually talk about that. So if we go to that example, now I'm gonna put myself in a bit of a corner here.
Okay.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I don't have any flexibility in my back. And frankly, if any of you have ever heard me talk, I've actually suffered a really severe injury in my back where I've got a herniated disc in my lower back from trying to be a power lifter 10 years ago. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But if I do that same thing and I try to have my legs straight and I try to reach down all the way, this is as far as I can get without doing something funky in my back.
You're actually doing pretty good.
Doing okay.
You did bend your knees, which is an automatic thing because you can't undo what you know. You can't undo this.
That's programmed.
So that's the truth. So he's really being nice. So snap your knees in the back and now forward fold. And that's what I see a lot of. That's what I'm seeing a lot. Look at your neck.
And I wish I was acting right now, but this is literally as far as I can go because of some of my body issues.
Yeah, and because your condition, you actually know, and to undo that, well, most people that come in for the first time, their knees are snapped and they're forward folding and they don't understand. They don't even hear the word bend your knees, and that's the whole point of this conversation, is that we do want to do the full pose. And a lot of people, as Brenda mentioned in the last program or discussion here, episode, is that because you're not straightening your legs and forward folding doesn't mean you're not doing an amazing asana. So bending your knees is part of being in the asana fully to your ability. Bend your knees.
So how does that work? And that comes down to the muscle. Because how many people have you had in your class, or if you've done something like this and you kept your legs straight, and like I'm experiencing, how tight do those hamstrings get?
Wow.
And what does everyone say? I have tight hamstrings. I always have tight hamstrings. Well, guess what? You always will have tight hamstrings because that's the way that you're built. So if I do the same piece of advice that you, because I mean, Theresa obviously has a fantastic forward fold. If I do that exact same piece of advice and I go from straight leg and try to reach down, this is as far as I get. But if I just bend the knees a little bit, and that just changes how much my hamstrings involved.
That's pretty awesome.
That experience changes for me completely.
As you grimace in your voice. So also we offer the blocks too, because a lot of people think, well, my knees don't bend anymore. Some people really are bending their knees to their max and still don't touch the floor, and I have not. I cannot pretend to do that. I don't know what they're feeling, and I only invite the blocks in. So that's another option, and that really helps out for those that are, it feels safer. You could come on your finger pads because that makes it feel better too, right?
So what is that doing? You don't have to go as far. We've talked about this, and Theresa, you're nailing this right now.
All the time. Please don't hurt yourself.
And you're unique.
Yeah.
And if you try to do what Theresa does, if I try to do what Theresa does, I'm gonna get injured. There's no way that my head's gonna get between my ankles without somebody pushing me there. Please don't.
And do not do that. Do not let anybody push you there. Adjusting, yes. Kindly with breath, yes, but not pushing. And the same, I cannot be a Cirque du Soleil chick. That's not my life. That's not my flexibility, nor do I want to do it. Even though it's quite lovely to watch, but no.
Now, Theresa, wasn't there a version of a forward fold that you were showing me seated?
Yeah, so the same thing, standing, which now taking it into a seat, and then we can have that discussion about all of these wonderful, so the same thing. If I knew, like standing up, snapping my knees straight forward, folding, I was going to round, same thing as laying down, the floor is your friend, so it doesn't lie, it's your best friend. My legs are straight. So if I keep my legs straight and then I forward fold, for most it looks like that, right? So if you bend your knees and forward fold, this is the option of bending the knees. I can straighten my legs and move into my forward fold because I have that range of motion, that flexibility, and I'm safely and effectively moving successfully with the muscles that I am born with. So if you're not born with those extended, long muscles, then guess what? It's gonna look like that, perhaps.
And she's a mutant, ladies and gentlemen. Incredible. Well, I'm blown away that you can even move like that. I wish I could move like that. But Theresa, what's actually great is that since I can't move like that, I can actually be in a good example to show what you need to do to try to actually fix this.
Yeah, then you.
So yeah, so if we take that exact same example, oh, the sock's crooked, there we go.
Fix the sock.
Right, so if I keep my legs straight and I try and do that same forward fold, I'm not getting much further than this. Now, we've already talked about one thing, and you mentioned it. I could bend my knees, and that may help with the hamstring. The problem with me, that opens things up a little bit. It doesn't make a real big difference. And part of the reason of that is now we're back to this structure dictates function. I might very well have bone in the way.
Okay.
Now, some of the challenges, and I mean, Theresa's an excellent example of not doing this, will say that if you're not doing it straight legs and reaching down, you're not doing the right forward fold.
And that's not true. you are doing the forward fold that works for you. So what is it going to look like?
So Brandon's forward fold, and I haven't actually done this in a long time, so we're gonna see how this goes.
I love this.
I'm gonna have my knees bent, and then what I'm gonna also do, because right now I've got some bone hitting bone here, I'm gonna actually externally rotate my leg or abduct my leg. So I'm in the same position. I'm gonna bring my legs out a little bit. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm gonna come down, and I can actually get a lot further without forcing anything. Now here's the thing, is you guys are probably watching, you might go, wow, he's really actually not moving that far. And I'll show you, this is as far as I can get. I could probably force myself to get further, but because of my back injury, it actually doesn't feel so good. Now I'm already doing this modified Brandon version of a forward fold. We've just changed two things. We made hamstrings cooperate a bit, and we moved some structure out of the way so we can actually move a little bit further.
And it does look like it's closer to what the guide or instructor would be directing the student to, but let's go reel that one back. Because the other one too is I often offer, because I know the majority of people do not have this range of motion to forwardly fold and touch their toes with their nose. So I offer that they flatten their feet to the mat, bending their knees at those right angles, but taking them wider.
Yeah.
And then sitting up nice and tall, and then even taking props between the legs into a position. And I know this is where they get all upset. It's like, but I'm not doing the full pose. But you are doing the full pose when you're able to you can actually take your feet wider. And you tell me if that works for you.
I actually can't go wider.
So there you go. So these are the things that we want to address, is that you need to choose to augment and find what works for you to successfully find that forward fold that works for you. And then taking it into a forward fold, because we often stay here for quite a while. So when you forward fold into this position, see if even the safety of the props, and then resting your forehead forward, stacking your hands on the props. Oh boy, you need a lot of props, so just like most of us. So this is the forward fold. And when we do go into this forward fold, that's what it really looks like, supporting yourself. You bring the floor to you. That's if you enjoy with your, does it work for you with your legs wide? Because this is the thing, we don't know exactly, because I don't feel it, I'm not that daft.
See, well, and this is the thing. Well, see, this is the thing, and I mean, my history as an exercise person for my own body, I power lifted a lot when I was 20 years old, and I really got quite strong, but my body, I didn't practice going through some of these motions, and then I got injured, which restricted things more. So
that's common, that's very common.
Yeah, a lot of young guys, like the 20-year-olds will lift too much weight and injure themselves. So the more you learn about your body, the better. This version works, but for me, this actually works a lot better. I feel a lot more comfortable going here. I can hang out here and put my head down. I can't touch the ground, but I can hang out there for a while.
No, that's perfect. So now you're going to see me on the mat as a yoga guide instructing that to help further, educate myself first of all. That's always the first thing. Love myself, educate myself so that I can support you as the guide. So I'm glad that we did this because I never thought of the external rotation. So ding, just learned something new. That's really awesome.
Hey, it was great. It was a great conversation today. Thanks so much for even bringing that up.
Yeah.
Forward fold's a big deal. If you guys are doing forward folds and you're feeling any pinches in the front of the hip, no pain equals no gain is baloney. Don't push into that. You've got a lot of sensitive tissue there, like labrum, small joint capsules, and you can pinch that sucker and tear it really easy. So don't push into pain. Make sure it's comfortable. Have a fun time with it too.
Yeah, no, there's so much more that we can talk about, and we will in the future episodes. So stay tuned here on the YouTube channel, whether it be Strata Fitness or Yoga Source YouTube channel. And I am Theresa, your yoga guide here at Yoga Source, talking about forward folds, and I hope that you've learned something.
And I'm Brandon Green, your biomechanics and fitness specialist from Strata Internal Performance. Thanks for watching, guys.
That's awesome. Thank you. Namaste.